Pinky and the Brain, issue 25. Brain complains that the basement of the lab is absurd and wonders what sane being would store relics from their adventures like this, as he's surrounded by objects that are useless to him, the way they are, including something that's shaped like the submarine from an earlier issue. So as usual, the comic has continuity only on a case-by-case basis, although Brain should realize that the relics could be useful if he used them for materials to make inventions. Pinky says he keeps everything from their previous plans down here, and he can't remember where he got the dinosaur toy because it was from a Happy Meal at the drive-thru. Brain finds the device it is that let him imitate someone's voice perfectly, and plans to use it to make people think that celebrities are calling them asking for sizable donations to the Brain Activities League. Just because someone over the phone claims to be a celebrity and sounds like one doesn't mean the person he's calling would believe him. He wouldn't. He'd just think the voice sounded similar by coincidence. And nobody's voice sounds the same over the phone anyways. Another reason nobody would believe him is that what are the chances of that actual celebrity calling some random person? Not to mention that still wouldn't guarantee the person would donate. Pinky finds the comic he had in issue 1, and he literally says issue 1. Which would only make sense if he's aware that in the infinite universes with infinite possibilities happening, inevitably there's a universe where a comic's based on his adventures. So he found that comic. And there's an infinite amount of comics like that, and in that universe, issue 1 of it had that adventure. Pinky wastes time with a recap, and Brain hits him and calls him out on it, and says, "Don't you want people to actually buy our first issue? If you know recap's annoying, don't write it." He expects Pinky to stay out of trouble unsupervised. Well, I guess he got into the habit of that because it's the only way to get a break from him. But of course, Pinky activates the transformation chamber and they become superheroes again. Because of Pinky using the computer, Brain finds out they're still on Earth, and he was able to contain the transformation process to just this basement. In a nearby Acme City automotive junk lot, Dark Pinky stands up and laughs. Which makes no sense because I thought he died, and that's why he was drawn to have his tongue out while passed out. It makes more sense that he didn't die from just reading Pinky's mind. I never thought I'd see him again, so this is a treat. If Dark Brain doesn't show up, I'll assume that he died. He thinks the Taco Bell ad is funny and says this is his kind of world. Brain complains that his costume's uncomfortable, and says that he'll do what any person trying for public attention from their fans would do, and appear in a telethon. Why does he think he and Pinky have fans? Okay, granted, with all the bad world leaders out there, it is realistic that there'd be some people in their worlds that want them to take over the world to see if they'd do a better job. Even some fans of the show can't help but root for them because of that. And if Brain already deludes himself into thinking that some of his stupidest plans would get him put in charge from sheer public support alone, it's also believable that he'd assume he has fans. But he doesn't have a fan in this guy interviewing him, because he doesn't know who Pinky and Brain are under those costumes, which is even harder to believe, because he actually does turn out to have fans in this comic. Pinky says he loves his fans. Brain thanks the guy introducing him as a volunteer, and then the telethon gets interrupted by Dark Pinky, when he could have easily interrupted any other program. He had no way of knowing that Brain and Pinky were on the telethon. Dark Pinky says he can read everyone's mind, so no secret is safe from him. And he says he'll use this info to commit heinous crimes, win at lotto, and destroy public television. So he's just trying to intimidate people to scare them into making him the ruler. Why doesn't he just say, "But I won't do that if you make me the ruler"? Otherwise, he's just scaring people for nothing. Why would any version of Pinky commit heinous crimes on purpose? His version of Brain must have removed his conscience to benefit himself because he wouldn't nag him not to do evil things anymore. Because he didn't think to humor him like Brain. And so he turned on Dark Brain because he didn't have a conscience to hold him back from wanting to get back at him. And obviously, just being able to read someone's mind wouldn't let you do all those things he mentioned. You'd just hear the one thought that someone was thinking at the time. So either he's lying and exaggerating to scare people, or he can read someone's mind and learn everything they know. Because if all he can do is read someone's mind, most secrets would be safe from him because you usually aren't going to be thinking about your secret. Thanks to his threat, the donations are flooding into the telethon. So he actually did something really good by doing that. Wow. Brain says that by defeating Dark Pinky on live TV, he'll get the world on his side. That won't get any leaders to give him their job. He tells someone to bring that remote camera and document his exploits. So that's how he plans to beat him on live television. Well, if you put a camera on his suit, then the camera would get damaged the next time he'd be in a fight and someone would hit it. He'd be way more likely to get hurt than some random cameraman following behind him. He tells him he's got a vehicle of his own from the Brain Cave. We see that there's an Acme National Bank. How? It's like it's literally a monopoly. A guy at the bank says Dark Pinky read his mind to learn the bank's weak spots. Brain decides to scale the wall with a device, and there's a sideways panel with sideways text to make me not feel like reading it. He agrees that it'd be easier to take the elevator. They reunite with Dark Pinky, and after I have a harder time reading Brain and Pinky's text because it's slanted, there's an in-universe explanation for it that doesn't make it okay. The cameraman apologizes sarcastically, and Dark Pinky sends some people after Brain to fight him, which only makes sense if they work for him to keep him from leaking their secrets to other people. I like that he tripped over one of them, while they were distracted fighting people other than the person we wanted them to fight. Dark Pinky's been holding a ladder hanging from a helicopter carrying a bag of money. Brain says they'll go after him with a flying vehicle of their own, and the cameraman has to run after it on foot. Unless he realized what he did and stopped for him, he wouldn't get recorded beating Dark Pinky because of this. They reach Dark Pinky's hideout, which is an obvious tower that would have been caught on Google Maps, but it hasn't been there long enough. The only way it'd already be built is if it was built really fast with nanobots. Pinky accurately predicts what Dark Pinky's exact plan would be, which is too big of a coincidence when there's other plans he could have had. Dark Pinky doesn't think exactly like he does anyways, because he's pure evil. How does Pinky get whacked from talking about his dog when Brain's tied to a rocket? A bunch of panels are wasted, and instead of us getting to see how they got loose, we see them lose and Brain has some stilted dialogue for no reason that tells us what happened. They shook out the mimicry microchip that fell into Brain's costume earlier, which made Brain talk like Adam West and caused his costume to feel too uncomfortable. He says he got loose with an axe from his belt. If the writer knows to have a cameraman say that he didn't have one in an earlier page, there's absolutely no excuse for writing it that way. Having a straw man lampshade the bad writing makes the writing far more infuriating. He wonders how the countdown timer hasn't launched the rocket yet. Speaking of that, you could explain that the countdown timer's wrong because Dark Pinky's insane. He says he's a big fan, so he knows all about Brain's adventures, including issue 18. Even though those were definitely different universes from this, because Brain and Pinky looked different. So he literally does come from a universe where that comic exists. Brain abandons him, leaving him to rocket to the moon. I assume because he didn't have time to save him. And he hands someone else a camera to record him. Would it run out of film at some point? So they go somewhere else to see some more of Dark Pinky's grunts. I didn't read the story to read about them easily defeating grunts. I read it looking forward to them dealing with Dark Pinky. I guess the reason Brain knows he has these bowling shoes already is that it's a part of the transformation that he learns that stuff. Dark Pinky ends up hidden to bowling pins, but then he says he's brought someone with him from the other universe, but didn't reveal her until now for some reason, and calls her Poison Billy, but she's shaped like Pinky. So this would only make sense if he injected her with some of his DNA. And I don't want to think about why he would do that. Brain says he first met her when he was exploring the transformed superhero universe alone off screen. That never happened. He was always with Pinky in issue 1. It could have easily not had issue 1 written. They went to a bad movie that Billy kept watching with them, which is only justified because apparently she's ditzy like Pinky according to TV tropes, but this comic never really established that. She doesn't seem to have a personality. And somehow I'm expected to believe that the movie transformed her into this. This would only make sense if Dark Pinky intentionally had the movie programmed to do that to her in particular after following them to the theater, like with the nanobots. What other explanation is there for a lot of these things? Pinky says he doesn't remember him getting separated from Brain in issue 1. Brain reminds him that he was at the pound picking up a dog. That never happened. There was no time where that could have happened. Brain gets kissed, and that messes with his mind because of her lipstick, which causes them to fight and let Dark Pinky leave. Pinky apologizes and says he can't help himself, but conveniently, they end up getting to the gold depository just fine because they agreed on the worst film in recent history, even though they have two completely different personalities. But Dark Pinky gets away again after the grunts get tied up. This is dragging on. I've been given no reason to hate these grunts, so why should I like seeing them get beaten up? Brain needs a boat to get to the tropical island, and the camera woman has to go water skiing to follow behind them. Pinky gets uncharacteristically mad at him again, talking too much before finally complaining about how repetitive and silly it is that he has so many gadgets named after himself, but nothing named after Pinky, except for a gag to gag him, because it's just for him. But he's clearly justified in naming all those gadgets after himself. He's the smart one, and the leader. Dark Pinky's plan gets predicted accurately again by a crazy coincidence, but somehow Brain and Pinky run out of the hole with tigers in it. I guess they climbed out of it first, but how'd they get the chance to? At that point it'd make more sense if it was explained that Brain had a way to instantly put them to sleep. Poison Billy kisses Brain and says it'll make him a slave, and Brain talks too slowly because of the brainwashing. So Pinky asks if there's no end to the stilted dialogue, but that doesn't justify writing it. Brain tells her the secret passageway to the Brain Cave, so she goes into it because it just so happens to be on this island Dark Pinky randomly chose. Then Brain tells Pinky now, as if he had made himself immune to the lipstick with a gadget off screen and was only pretending. And Pinky throws Dark Pinky into the thing, which is apparently the transformation chamber, even though it's orange. How did they make this mistake? Pinky wonders how it got here, and fortunately it's explained. It was brought here by the Brain Blimp. There's no way he could have not found out about this already because he's always been with him. Fortunately he's questioned about why he was resistant to the lipstick. She kissed some fake lips he was wearing that look nothing like his regular mouth when he's carrying them. Now where's the explanation for why it changed color after he took it off? It was invisible before. That's why there's no indication that he had it on. He says he'll return them to where they came from. Sure, it's nice of him to do that instead of just having a bomb in the chamber. I guess he figures that he doesn't have time to depower them when for all he knows, they could break out any second. Maybe the bat brain that Dark Pinky is used to dealing with already dealt with someone who tried to kiss them with brainwashing lipstick before, so that's why the fake lips were there. They lose their costumes because they're close to the transformation chamber when it went away. Huh? When they come back to the group of fans waiting for them, they get furiously called out on for not saving one of their fans from the rocket, even though the fan was annoying. Not to mention was drawn in a needlessly derogatory way. Seriously, it's bad marketing to do that. Brain should have explained to that cameraman that he didn't have time to untie him from the rocket or cut the ropes of it. But he could have had time if he spent the time he was spending talking to Pinky, getting him loose from the rocket. Also, that cameraman wouldn't have asked him how he got loose from the ropes because he would have seen how he did it. This story by Jesse McCann felt like it dragged out because it mostly repeated the same plot point where Dark Pinky got away from Brain and Pinky had to fight some of his grunts, when we obviously want to see him get attacked, not them. It's the same thing over and over but in a different place every time. It was nice to see the various gadgets Brain was using. A real sour point of the issue was when the writer had the cameraman call him out on his own sloppy writing where Brain freed himself with an axe he clearly didn't have, and would have hurt himself with it if it was invisible. Although since he made a shrink ray in an earlier issue, he could have shrunken it and then had some cover over it so that the axe part wouldn't hurt him, but the writer was too lazy to explain that, so I doubt he even thought of it. If it was explained, I would have taken this seriously. Lampshading bad writing doesn't make up for it. It makes it extremely frustrating because now it's got no excuse for existing. If I'm told that the bad writing is intentional, I'm also being told that the writer can't be trusted to not write badly on purpose more often. It's plausible that he'd have that axe, but then there's no excuse for the artist not drawing it until it was used. There's never any excuse for strawmanning actual fans. That's making fun of the audience, which is obviously just bad marketing. Some attention is drawn away from Dark Pinky because he's got a new ally that's got hypnotizing lipstick. Because that's what we want out of this. Eventually, Dark Pinky gets sent away with her back to his world because Brain had a blimp from the Batcave send the transformation chamber to his location. So they're gonna go back to their world and go back to inconveniencing the people there. At least I can compliment him on not making the mistake of trying to read Pinky's mind again, but that was common sense. And the whole reason the story happened is that Pinky went to the transformation chamber again and pressed buttons asking where the light switch is, when anyone would know that those buttons couldn't be the light switch because they're in the chamber and not on the wall. So that wasn't believable. It would be if Pinky did this on purpose, or tripped and fell on the buttons, like after Brain hit him with the ruler. There's too much of the writer making a mistake and then lampshading it. It was kind of an exciting story, but it was too repetitive and padded out, and threw away an opportunity for a ton of slapstick against Dark Pinky. And because he didn't do anything but threaten on TV, he might as well have not been in the story afterwards. It's a huge disappointment because he didn't get hurt at all in the end of the story. So the sore points of the issue resulted in a story that made me mad after it was done.